So here we are. This is about developing professionally. And the good news is you did not have to buy this book and then only have to read one chapter in it. The book is available and it's actually pretty free. But the concept of expertise is that no matter what you're expert in, there are these 6 factors that seem to describe it compared to being a novice. So you could be an expert in making peanut butter sandwiches, in swimming or soccer. It could be in anything. And of course, in this class, you're thinking about becoming an expert as a teacher. But all experts have got these dimensions to them. And so it starts with knowledge. And so the more expertise you have, you can see patterns in the facts. So instead of just a big shopping cart full of factoids, you can see some patterns to it. You also have some depth and complexity in that you can see how the knowledge relates to other knowledge. And you can always put it in context. So that knowledge base is also added skill. So if someone has expertise, often it looks like they don't have to spend any effort. It just seems to be so easy for them. But their effort just becomes very efficient. Now, the ironic thing, number 5 here says teach. Somebody can be an expert and not know how to teach what they're an expert in. You may have had some teachers like that. So teaching is its whole expertise in itself, and you can't assume that just because you have a doctorate in math, you can teach math. Something else that all experts have is flexibility. This means that they are not limited to one right answer, and they're pretty comfortable with probabilities and with variety of how things can come out. So knowledge and skill is important for expertise. What's not mentioned specifically in this chapter is disposition. And those are the 3 components of effective teaching. It's mixing your knowledge, your skill, and your disposition. And a disposition is everything else that's not knowledge and skill. So it's basically attitudes and beliefs. And experts are comfortable with complexity and with ambiguity. So with this development, here you are. And as I said before, most development is going to be invisible to start with, but you have a tremendous amount of growth that you've already had. You've already gone through high school and you've gone through college already. And now you're starting to work toward a residency certificate. And so you are pretty visible here because you are out in the schools already. And then after you get your residency certificate, you'll have a couple of years to get the professional certificate, which means you're going to show that you have some competence and expertise. And then you'll go on to something else. So your career development, you start as a teacher candidate, develop more, you keep on going to school. And as you become a job candidate, and gain more classroom experience, and you start to take on classroom leadership. You'll start supervising student teachers yourself. You'll be in charge of a department, but you may even go on to get another credential. Some of you are already thinking you could be a principal. Maybe you want to pivot and become a librarian or a school counselor or something like that. There's quite a bit in administration that's needed. And perhaps you want to go into higher education and teach teachers as well. So here you are in the MAT program, and you should already be thinking you're in this for a couple decades. So what does expertise look like in action? That jump from unskilled to expert is gradual. So you gradually have competence and proficiency. And there's a huge difference at each stage in what you think and in what you do. So at the unskilled level or the novice level, you usually rely on what you have personally experienced, and you expect there to be one right answer. If the answer is not obvious, you often panic and it's catastrophic and you think there is no way to fix it. And the response usually is, when things go wrong, is to be defensive and explain, well, the reason that I couldn't do it was this, or to blame it. It says it's because this, my computer wasn't working, or there are things that I didn't have in control. And the focus is defense. Meanwhile, as you gain more experience, you start to notice that there are different outcomes. And instead of there being one right answer, you start to notice patterns. And you develop greater confidence in being able to predict different outcomes. And you have a shift where you welcome feedback. And you expect to make slight differences so that you can experiment in new ways. And you start to actually enjoy the fact that there's a variety. And with more proficiency, you can explain the phenomena using theory and even come up with theories yourself. And that's why, even at the very beginning, you are introduced to theories that you will be able to use to explain things. Something else that develops is more transparent collaboration. You're not so private and protective about not showing something until it's perfect. Here's a draft. What do you think? Give some feedback. And you start to feel like we're all in this trying to work on it together, and there's much less competition. So you also reach a point of publishing new knowledge. And when you finish a master's project, that should be a publishable article that you have produced. And you can use that to teach teachers, and you can celebrate the paradox. So you're developing expertise. You're getting a lot of knowledge. You're developing a lot of skill, and you're aware of your dispositions. So I introduced you to the format last week, and dispositions are the top two in this 4, the feeling and the valuing. That's dispositions. Knowledge and skills are here. So how do they work together? Students always start with their own comfort zone and their feelings. And that's what they're protecting. And the next step is concrete of what they can actually do. You, as a teacher, are trying to shift them to think as well. So that knowledge, in the abstract way, to be considering what's useful now and what might be useful later. Teachers work in the opposite direction. You have enduring priorities, ethics and standards, and you choose the objectives, and you start to think about, based on research and theory, what is going to be important to learn. And that's part of your lesson planning. Then you move on to activities that kids will be doing. And then your final feeling is whether it kind of worked. So your expertise in action. If you notice that you are seeing a pattern, that means you notice that you are becoming more competent. If you are still feeling kind of panicky, recognize that being a novice is normal. And so it's good to look for examples to copy. And it's good to look for different ways to get different results. So if you're feeling rigid, realize that that is simply an indication that you're at a novice level. And if you want certainty, be okay with the fact that that will gradually relax a bit as you shift to being more interested in how it's working for the students. And you just find a pathway to make that work. And ultimately, I hope that you're going to be happy with probabilities, and that many of you are going to come up and teach